Hi, welcome to this series of videos. In the next few labs, we'll be exploring some scenarios that imply the use of public key infrastructure, PKI, and personal identity verification cards. As an intro, I always like to say when we talk about PKI is that, although we can, with some software from, Centrify, some software from Microsoft, and now with YubiKeys, things are very simple to do. Never underestimate the fact that PKI does really need to have a balance with a triad of people, process, technology, and I would add policy. Things like, hardened devices like HSMs, issuance policy, processes, and enforcement are really important. Do not be fooled by the fact that we can do this very easy in a lab. This requires a lot of thought, and PK is a very, very delicate topic. Now let's go to the technology. Although setting up your own CA, making sure auto-enrollment and trust chains are not part of the scope here, I just want to make sure just to eliminate some possible frustrations to show how my environment is set up. First and foremost, I'm working on AWS. That typically you would do this physically, right? So some of the things that I'm going to do may take a little longer because in AWS I'm using shared VMs. But I have a simple scenario. I have a domain controller that is running Microsoft Certificate services. I do have many services enabled because I use this environment for other things. Ideally, you will always only use the services that you need enabled. You don't want to do more services because you want to minimize exposure. After all, we're talking security here, right? So this is the setup for my CA. And on the back end, if I look at my member server, I don't touch domain controllers when we're doing this, right? Well, so we leave them alone. You wanted to make sure that you have the trust chain in place. For example, in my particular case, that means that either on enterprise trust or as an intermediate CA, I have the root CA for my domain already published. At the same time, I need to have certificates provisioned for the machines that are already in participating in the realm, right? And this could be provisioned manually, or they could be auto-enrolled using GPOs. If you're not familiar with these concepts, the link that I gave you on the blog is going to be enough for you to be able to set this up. Okay. Another thing that we need to have in place is the Yubikey PIV manager, right? So the PIV manager allows you to provision certificates into your cards, right? So when you initialize the YubiKey, it will ask you for the PIN. The PIN is very important. If you mistype the PIN 3 times, you're going to get locked and you're going to have to reset and delete everything again, right? The way you test your certificates is by using, enrolling the certificate. For smart cards, I basically published one certificate template. It's called the smart card user certificate template. There's another certificate called the smart card log on. So I'm using it for multiple purposes, but you don't need to assume that this is the way to do it. In order for you to test it, all you need to do is go to certificates, right? Generate a new key, and if everything is working as expected, you should be able to generate a request. So I launched this as my user. The template name is this one. The template display name may have spaces. So you have to actually put everything together. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do the enrollment here. Notice that it's going to ask me for the smart card PIN. When that happens, it's going to go and it's going to use the certrec executable or binary included with Windows, and it's going to try and go and get the certificate from the certificate authority. I'm going to use the one that is not HTTP, but the one used directly using remote procedure calls. That has an implication too. You need to make sure that there's a clear path between the client and the CA so they can do the certificate provisioning like this. Notice that it was generated, right? The simple way that you can test a certificate is just by locking your screen, right? And I locked it in the wrong place. I need to lock it here, right? So when you lock your screen, you'll be able to basically um, test the authentication using the certificate. So if in my case, like I said before, I'm working over AWS, right? So it takes a little while for the VM in AWS to look up the smart card that I have connected locally here. So if I'm able to sign in with my PIN, right, I should be able to, do the labs that we're going to be doing successfully here. So wanted to make sure that you know things are covered correctly, that the proper caveats are in place. I've noticed that some of my customers and prospects have used some of the blog postings and they have used them to go into production. In the case of PKI, please don't. All the labs are labeled as labs. Do not, you know, underestimate the fact that they're simple. When you put them in production, you have to think about the triad, okay? It's people, process, technology, and in the case of security, security policy. So have fun with these labs. We're going to do a lot of cool things. YubiKeys are amazing. Centrify software just works. Active Directory has a lot of things in place already to make this happen. So I'm hoping that we learn a lot, and I'll see you in the next videos.